With Michael. He is our Director of Transportation Planning in the Mayor's office. Sitting just around the corner from him is Kendra Abkowitz, who is helping with this effort as well. Sitting behind them at the table is Matea Canavino. Each of you may interact with any of them or other people from our staff. My main job here today is to say thank you for participating in this. We are arriving. Michael and I just rode the trusty 55 Murfreesboro down from Wego Central after I had made an announcement that we are going to work hard to offer Nashville voters an opportunity on November 5th to vote for a much better way to move around the city. This will be something for everyone. You can see there are Connect 4 games here. This really should be an opportunity for Nashvillians to think about sidewalk investments. This will be one of the most important sidewalk delivery scenarios we have. It should be an opportunity to modernize our traffic grid. It should be an opportunity to expand both service levels and service hours for transit, knowing that we should be a city at this size that has 24/7, 365 service. And we are also focused on safety. And so all of these elements are present. They've just put up on the screen kind of a summary image of the output of our transition committee. We had a resident-led process right after taking office that focused on how Nashville moves. One of their key recommendations you can see on the lower left is transit referendum. It's got a question mark by it. We've changed that to an exclamation mark today. That is something we're very excited about. In fact, when Alex Jahanger was presenting the recommendations of this committee at the library, he kind of went a little deeper and said that the committee had had a lot of discussion about focusing on this November. We were very excited to be a part of a citywide conversation over the past year that showed that not only all of the mayoral candidates believed that this was important, but that has now been joined by data from Imagine Nashville showing that 74% of Nashvillians strongly believe that a citywide plan is urgent and necessary. So we wanted to gather people together. We've got Michael and his team working hard on transportation policy. When we took office, WeGo and our Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure were already moving together around a master mobility study, and we said, let's see if we can accelerate the delivery of that work by preparing that in something that could work for a transit referendum. After today's announcement, this is a kickoff meeting. We wanted to make sure we've got great technical planning expertise. They've been working for decades. Ed Cole and I started working together on this journey probably close to 20 years ago. I hate to think about how long it has been that we have not taken enough steps in this direction. But we want to make sure this plan works at a human level, and that is why I am so grateful to have you all here. We have people around this table that represent new Nashvillians coming in as immigrants and refugees. We have people representing both North Nashville and Southeast Nashville. We have people representing perspectives of housing, people representing perspectives of our disability community, people representing perspectives of our senior community, people representing perspectives of frankly using cars less, and then our business community and beyond. So again, I am here primarily to say thank you. The charge from today is to make sure that the technical work we're doing is connected to the very human experience of being able to be a pedestrian, being able to be a cyclist, being able to be a transit user, and yes, being able to be a motorist, all successfully, safely, conveniently, and as inexpensively as possible. It's an exciting day. It's an exciting day for us in the mayor's office, but we hope it's an exciting day because we have felt in conversations around the city, I have felt personally, even just in the past few weeks when I stop to get donuts and coffee with police officers in the Old Hickory Chamber of Commerce, when I am at arts performances, when I am just out at neighborhood meetings, the enthusiasm people have knowing that we have a chance to do something big and important to improve the city's future it is a very vibrant moment. So thank you for being a part of this excitement. I am going to stay, I hope, long enough to make sure we get introductions through. But then from here, this is going to be a process that you all and Michael go through for the next several weeks. We do want to have something that the way we chase this opportunity, it does have to be reviewed and approved by the comptroller through an audit process. So we will have to work quickly, but we also know that we're basing this moment on, just in the past decade, 70 planning and study exercises specifically around transit and transportation and infrastructure, and 65,000 points of input from Nashvillians. So we're not starting from scratch. We've got a good, strong baseline, and we just need to make sure we get the details right. So thank you all for being here this morning, and Michael, I'll hand it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate you kicking us off. And it's good to see many of you. Some of you I know really well. Some of you are new faces to me, but maybe we've talked on the phone. So I hope to get to know some of you much better over the coming weeks and months as well. Couple more things just on logistics really quickly. So this is the agenda. I will say it modified a little bit from what was in your invite. So nothing too substantial, but the thing that I want to reiterate with the process is that, and also ask for a little bit of grace, because this is an evolving process. So there is some uncertainty with this. And I think when we oftentimes have uncertainty, it can make us nervous and kind of withdraw. And my goal with this is to get you all to talk, share your experiences, because I think if we all can kind of share those different perspectives, we will have a much better program here in just a few weeks. And this is going to move really quickly. And so the big thing that I'll just quickly reiterate is related to timeline. And so the mayor alluded to this. And so I wanted to start that off at the very beginning, because if it's buried further in, I think we don't realize how quickly things will move. We really have to have an idea of the program by the end of this month. And so the financial audit then has to be done by the end of March to go to the state comptroller. So that's what we're working with in terms of timeline. We don't have a lot of wiggle room with it, but I think we will enjoy this work together. So the first thing that I like to begin the conversation is to get people thinking about their transportation story. And I changed out actually mine. I had one where I was a little bit younger. I found a photo of me where I actually had a wreck while in college. It was a pretty bad wreck where a impaired driver ran a red light. T-boned. The passenger in my car actually broke a couple ribs. This totaled my car. I was 21 at the time. And the thing is, my parents are pretty solidly middle class. But I was fortunate enough to have, their backing to be able to kind of get me back on my feet and be able to still have transportation in a town that did not have, and still to this day does not have great transit options, which is, in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So not a big city. But I say that in that we all have stories and experiences, and this captures some of the things that we've shared within the mayor's office. And I would love to add to this, because we are bringing different perspectives related to access, related to our gender, our race, how people treat us when we're out walking or biking, taking the bus, how even we're driving and treat one another. And so there's a lot of issues that kind of come into here. And so I wanted to begin by maybe sharing that. So what I'd like to do is go around the room and ask all the people at the table just to introduce themselves. And then if you have a story that you want to share really quickly, let's hear that. I will start on my left, if we are okay with that. And let's also try to remember to turn our mics on. Thank you.
Trying to think of a story. I'm Rachel Blackhurst. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for NAIOP Nashville, which is the Commercial Real Estate Development Association. I don't know if I have a good transit story, but I've lived in cities that I'm from Denver originally, which was one of the cities that kind of, I guess, pioneered the light rail. So I lived there as that was just coming into existence, but I've also lived in Los Angeles with really, really bad traffic and New York City with really decent transit.
Thank you.
I'm Lisa with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. I, in my 20s and 30s, lived in London and New York and just absolutely loved public transportation. I was telling Kalita, I absolutely hate driving. So I'm very excited about this initiative.
Hi, my name is Kalita Rivera. I'm working with the third with Elisa. I will talk in Spanish because it's my language. Okay. Mi experiencia en el transporte cuando llegué la primera vez aquí ha sido un poco frustrante porque cuando conseguí trabajo vivía en una área que no tenía acceso al transporte.
When I first arrived to Nashville from my home country, it was really frustrating transportation because I couldn't access my work from my neighborhood.
Tenía que caminar como 1.5 millas entre la calle y ni siquiera calles, sino los bunches.
Mm-hmm. I had to walk about 1.5 miles between my home and like the place where you would grab the bus.
Y las calles muy solitarias.
And they were really isolated streets.
Y tuve una experiencia desagradable con un conductor.
And I had an experience of harassment with another driver.
Y pretendría ser amable,
He was pretending to be nice,
pero tenía otras intenciones
but he had other intentions.
que me aterrorizó al principio,
That terrorized me at first.
pero lo tuve que superar porque tenía una misión de llegar a mi trabajo.
But I had to overcome it because my mission was to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Emily Thaden. I'm the vice chair of MDHA here in Nashville, and I also work for Habitat for Humanity International, doing affordable housing in the U.S. Similar to some of the other stories, I have the privilege of traveling a lot for work and spending a lot of time in D.C. and Atlanta and New York and Denver and other places, and I am just so desperate to see our city catch up and offer that to residents because it makes such a difference with equity.
Hi, I'm Leslie Meehan with the Tennessee Department of Health, and I find this question very appropriate today because my middle child, my 9-year-old, just rode to school from home for the first time solo today. So very exciting, and I've got a high schooler downtown who takes the bus every day, so transportation is a huge part of our lives and how my kiddos are able to get around.
Hi, I'm Carol Westlake, and I'm the director of the Tennessee Disability Coalition. So I have an education story as well. So I grew up in a very small town, about 12,000 people in northern Ohio, and we had what we called the city bus. We weren't really a city. And for 10 cents, you could ride anywhere. And I spent my childhood riding the bus downtown to go to the library and taking it to school because it was either walk 2 miles to school or take the bus, and just made it a really comfortable, easy way to grow up. In my young adulthood, I lived in Denmark, and a bicycle and a bus and a train took me everywhere I needed to go, never had a car. I would love to have that opportunity here.
Hi, Todd Rolap. I'm the managing partner at Bassberry & Sims. I was former chair and co-chair of Moving Forward. Similarly, I echo what's been said. I grew up in D.C. I loved riding public transit there. I lived in Scandinavia. I really loved it there. And I'd like to see Nashville improve in this area. And I'm really grateful for the invitation to be here and participate. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tomas Yan. I am the Associate Director of Conexión Americas. Stories about transit. I did my master's over here between Fisk and Vanderbilt, and I rode the bus so many days, so many times. That bus 37 is embedded in my head, and all the things that go with it, right? So I hope that I can humbly contribute to this topic over here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Good morning. My name is Dale Mitchell, and I'm the Community Development Coordinator for Pinnacle Financial Partners, with responsibility for the legacy Pinnacle footprint, Tennessee, also Kentucky, and a portion of Alabama. I'm thinking about what story to share. I'm a cyclist, which has its own hazards, but what really impressed me, what story I want to share, is the fact that I remember years and years ago when I graduated from Vanderbilt, I was being recruited to work for a bank in Charlotte. And I remember reading an article about how Nashville and Charlotte were the sister cities of the South and on the rise. This was in 1986. And 3 years ago, I went to Charlotte to watch a football game, and stayed in a hotel on the north side of town and rode light rail downtown to the football game. And I thought to myself, these sisters didn't evolve the same way. So it would be great to see, as has been shared, Nashville catch up to what the rest of the nation is doing, particularly our sister cities in the South.
Good morning. I'm Angela Crane Jones. I'm the CEO of the Nashville Business Incubation Center. And my transportation story starts with, high school and being a child of a single parent that couldn't pick me up every day, and I was able to get home from school on the actual school bus, but still needed, because we lived in Edge Hill, we was out of zone, be able to catch the city bus. And I'm proud to have my child in metro schools, and he goes to Hillsborough, but I live in Goodlettsville, and so my son is able to catch the bus to Gallatin Road, although I live on the other side, so he still has to walk. So I'm hoping we could get transportation further down Dickerson Road. But the other piece I want to add, because my child has been exposed, and same thing, we went to the Super Bowl in Atlanta several years ago, you could fly into the airport, catch the train to downtown, and then we stayed in another county because we could catch, the train further out. And go back and forth. We didn't have to drive nor need to drive. And so now when we travel, that's what we look for. We just went to Europe. We were able to do the same thing without renting a car. So I'm excited to be on this advisory committee to see Nashville catch up as well, especially if we're going to have a Super Bowl here in several years.
We hope the Titans might win a few before on that journey. I think this is such a great part of the process, and Michael, thank you for inviting people to do this. I've had a lot of people ask me what sparked your interest in running for mayor, and really starting to ride the bus 22 years ago in Nashville was a big part of that. I think, like Michael, my parents started off working class and moved into middle class maybe somewhere along the time when my brother and I were growing up. We wound up being able to access schools, but I realized later my parents put a lot of priority by buying cheap cars that needed a lot of work through the years on my brother and I having access to that, when most of the schools we could have accessed, most of the things in the city we needed to access could have been available by bus. I figured this out when I was an adult, but then that experience of commuting and sharing a car with my girlfriend became a journey of being car free. And so across all of that, it was my pathway to home ownership. I saved the amount of money that it takes to own and maintain and fuel and insure a car over that period. For Nashvillians, it's about $8,000 a year. It turns out that's enough for a nice down payment. Even today, it would still be a huge opportunity for financial empowerment. That put me in an urban neighborhood that was walkable, that Whitney could access Meharry from by foot, by bike, by transit. And we were homeowners for years before we wound up getting a car. Ultimately, she needed a car first because she started to have away rotations. And we eventually had kids, and I think that part too increased the likelihood of needing to be a 2-car family after being a 0-car family. I would love to get back to being a 1-car or even a no-car household. And again, it's partly a tool of financial empowerment, but that lived experience informed my neighborhood leadership, informed my interest in running for council. It was a huge part of my service on the Nashville MTA Board of Directors. And it is why I think all of these perspectives add up to this being an urgent need for the city. Because I remember too, 15 years ago, Charlotte was making huge investments in transportation and infrastructure. And you could see in the headlines after the Recovery Act, when they started to see what the impact of some of those investments were, they saw public health improvements just because of the transit investment causing more active transportation. People were walking more, they were accessing parks more, they were doing things that made them healthier because of Charlotte's investment. And so not only can we improve our affordability, we can improve our health, we can improve workforce access, we can serve all of the communities that you all represent if we get this right. So thank you for sharing these stories.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Malone Haddocks, and I represent Nashville State Community College. I'm one of the campus directors. I'm also a native Nashvilleian. I've had the opportunity to grow up in this area. And when we speak of transportation, I think of more than just a car and a bus. I watch my students on a daily basis decide whether or not to attend school, work, or take care of their family, all due to transportation. While we do offer opportunities for our students, there's always room for improvement and growth. Serving on this committee, I am 1,000% about hearing the voice of our constituents, what is needed. It is much more than a basic need. It's a necessity for our community.
Good morning, I'm Kenya Magruder. I am a Nashville native. There's a lot of us around here, which is rare. But my first introduction to transit was being a high school kid at Father Ryan on Elliston Place. And when there was no body to pick me up because my daddy was at work and so was my mom, my friends and I took the bus from Elliston Place to Meharry because that was the shortest route, probably the best way for us to figure out how to get from Elliston Place. And we did that commute for a while when we weren't playing sports. However, when we moved further out, we did not take the bus because it was just too far. However, fast forward to life to go work in DC, transit became my best friend, especially during the winter because I couldn't drive in snow. But the luxury of leaving your car on Capitol Hill and just taking the transit to the Pentagon to Capitol Hill was so much better and so much freeing. As my college classmate would say, hey, I haven't driven my car in all month and I still got a full tank of gas because they would only drive it on the weekends. And we can't say that here. But I would love to be able to do that. And when I came back home 12, 13 years ago, it used to be when I was staying in my house, my grandmother, it would be the 56 bus in East Nashville, down the hill on Douglas, downtown, and back to 56. So let's do it again.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Laurel Creech. I'm the state director for the Nature Conservancy for the state chapter here in Tennessee. Formerly worked in metro government and sustainability for over a decade and have been on and off for the last 30 years working in some level of active transportation, so bicycle pedestrian efforts. I actually grew up in Chattanooga, so not native, but not too far away. My dad had diabetes type 1, and he was also a physician who treated diabetes, and his treatment was active and out and getting outside as much as you can. And so that was my affinity and probably why I drove my career in this direction, was because of the benefits of being active, walking and biking, and thinking about both the health and the mental and physical benefits, the community benefits, the sense of place, and also the environmental components and my love for nature, and knowing that our vehicles out there drive up emissions, which is unhealthy for all of us, anything living, not just us as humans, but all living habitats. So that is a little bit of my journey. So thank you.
I'm John Muhammad. I'm a community member. I've lived in Southeast Nashville for most of my life, riding the 55. Used to ride that thing to the Hickory Hollow Mall and, you know, have fun at Fat Caps and, you know, Man of Fashion, all that. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just think that it's a wild system that we have where we are just okay with everyone in the community needing a personal vehicle. There's not a real cohesive system to allow a bunch of people to move around. We all have to decide, okay, I'm gonna get in my car and go somewhere. Just to get here would have taken me an hour from Bell Road. It's a 20-minute drive. But with the walk and then to wait for the bus, it's an hour trip. So that's a perspective that I'd like to add to this committee.
All right. Hello. Let's get this closer. Tiffany Capehart. I am a realtor with Parks and a former Metro planner. And I was part of the team with Michael that worked on Nashville Next and the robust transit recommendations that were made in that plan back in 2015. My transit story, I remember riding the bus with my mom, who was a single mother in New Orleans, Louisiana. Fast forward to growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, we had a very robust public school transit system where they would transfer students, like you go to a transfer hub and then you would bus to different schools. So I think that opened up a lot more school choice for people to be able to do that. Fast forward, going to being a student at Tennessee State University, we decided to take the bus from campus down to Rivergate Mall. We got down to Rivergate Mall, had about 20 minutes in the mall before we had to get back on the bus to make it back to TSU. So that was my first and last time, unfortunately, riding our MTA bus system. Fast forward to being, a wife, my husband, working at the planning department. We lived in Antioch. We were a one-car family for a while, and he would ride his bike or walk to the transit hub at Antioch or at the Hickory Hollow Mall, take the bus down to downtown, and then walk up to our campus here, take the car, run his errands, and come back and pick me up. So that was kind of our routine for several years. And now, it's seeing him ride. He rides his bike. I have young children, and just now we travel with our kids, and I echo the sentiments of going in other cities and being impressed with their transportation system and not having to rent cars if we don't need to. So would love to see that here. So. Oh, and I'd like to add too, as a realtor, I do have clients who make housing choices based on if there's a bus stop, how quickly can they get to work and school and other places. So.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bree Perez. I'm the Director of Development at Senior Ride Nashville. And I guess the first thing that comes to mind is historically, I was a very nervous driver, dating back to my initial test. And I got that from my grandmother, Lois. And that can be one of the many reasons why it's so important to have transportation options, because there are so many different circumstances and variables into getting around and what we all need. So, yeah, thank you.
Hello, I'm Carrie Brumfield. I'm also a Nashville native. I feel obligated to say. I am the CEO of Senior Ride Nashville. For those that aren't familiar with us yet, we are a young and growing nonprofit here in Davidson County with a mission to enrich the lives of older adults and help them stay connected and engaged in the community by providing affordable and assisted transportation. This does complement the WeGo Access ride service, but certainly one that is needed for those that aren't eligible for that program. I'm a resident of East Nashville, have been there for 15 years now, and there's a lot of density, as we know, a lot of attractive opportunities to get out and about that are nearby. However, I am someone who puts my bike in the car to go to the Greenway because I don't feel the level of comfort and safety on the road, and would love to just access the assets in our community more easily.
Good morning. My name is Peter Millett. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Meharry Medical College. I'm a professor of psychiatry. I'd like to just say, I guess my experience would be, unfortunately, I'm not a native Nashvilleian, but I've been here for a while. I'm a first-generation American. My family's from Trinidad, and I grew up in Detroit. And one thing that they have in Detroit that I liked is they've got a train that just makes a loop. It's just a constant loop around different parts of the city. So you can get on here, you can get off here, and it's like 75 cents to get on or something. That's really inexpensive. I think that the transportation, in my estimation, we really need something to help our patients who do not always have transportation, or they don't live near transportation, or if you have certain health conditions, you can't walk 3 blocks to get to the bus station. So for the for patients and also for students, and I will say that I've been here off and on since '97, and the first time about a month ago, I did use public transportation. My car broke down, and I took it to Walmart, and I had to get back home, so I just got on. I think it was a number 50 bus, and I went straight down. And I said, oh, this is really nice letting somebody else do the work, and I'm just sitting back. So I'm really glad to be part of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Craig Phillip. I'm a transportation junkie. I grew up loving trains from the time I had my first Brio set, and I've had the good fortune to have been able to live a life doing nothing but transportation. And I work for 2 railroads and for this company Ingram in Nashville that does maritime stuff. And for the last 9 years, I've been teaching transportation engineering at Vanderbilt. I confess that I've been one of those that thought we had to have something really glitzy and sexy here to have transit. I've commuted to Chicago, to Washington, D.C., to New York, and to Philadelphia by train, and I thought it's got to be that. And I've changed my mind. What I want to see is that Nashville will get something done fast. That it's not a decade or 15 years from now that we have our first line going someplace. And the feature of Nashville that I'll share that makes us unique, we're unique because we've fallen behind in transportation, Charlotte being a great example, but many others. But this is only one of 4 big metropolitan areas in the country that has 3 interstate highways that run through it. So we have these incredible interstate corridors, and our state government has figured out that there may be a way to significantly improve the ability of those corridors to handle things like transit. You've heard choice lanes come up. And guess what? The first lane they're going to focus on in Nashville is I-24, and between Murfreesboro and Nashville. And this is an incredible gift that our city has if we can use those corridors to create a regional system, complement that with a great integrated network here in Nashville that I think this plan has the chance to do for us. So anyway, I'm really excited to be here with all of you today.
Thank you. My name is Ed Cole, and I've been in Nashville now. This is the 54th year, and I don't know if that makes me a native or not. Thank you, Mayor. That's the first welcome from the mayor I've ever experienced. No, thank you. I have had the wonderful opportunity to help put together some organizations that have addressed some of the issues. The Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee we created years ago now, and very much involved in the creation of Senior Ride Nashville that you've already heard about. But what I want to share with you is a professional experience that I had. This goes back to what the mayor alluded to some 20 plus years ago, when Governor Davidson decided that the Tennessee Department of Transportation has got to be more than a highway department. And this kind of goes to the outcomes that Craig just mentioned. So I was brought in to be the first chief at TDOT that was not an engineer. And I was the chief of environment and planning. And I was petrified walking into the halls of the Tennessee Department of Transportation with all of the engineers, all of the highway-focused people that did a great job. This is in no way negative. We considered Tennessee to have the best roads in the country at the time. But what I want to share with you is it would have been real easy to go to war at that point with the engineers in the department. and say, you got to think about transit, you got to think about the quality of the environment, you got to think about listening to people when we do road plans. We got to think about those things. What we did is to start talking together about the common interest that we shared. And before long, that common interest conversation had engineers talking about they really wanted to have a better way to communicate with people. They really realized that transit facilities could be a part of the interstate structures that we had, that there was more that we could do in long-range thinking and planning and working with cities and counties than we were doing. So my message here, and I'll close at this point, my message here is what we're about here, to me, is that kind of an effort to cross boundaries with people, to look at where people live and what they need, the things we're sharing around this table, and see what kind of public investments we can do together. That was the experience that I had working for TDOT, was we came away with a much broader, more group-based approach to solving transportation issues than just dealing with highways and cars. And I'm excited to be a part of that as we go forward here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Vonda McDaniel, and I represent the Central Labor Council, the local AFL-CIO affiliate here in Nashville, as its president. My transportation story is really one that my family often teases me about. I went to McGavick High School, and in order to be able to do the trigonometry that they offered in 12th grade, you would have to take geometry or one of the other classes in summer school. My mother's also a public school educator. She said, you need to take the math, but it's my summer break, so you're gonna have to figure it out. And so I took geometry at Hume-Fogg. I learned how to navigate the public transit system getting from Haynes Manor to Hume-Fogg, but I also learned how to get to Centennial Park and to the mall, and at that point, I think that my mother rethought her statement about, but also in my work with the Central Labor Council, we have a program called Music City Construction Careers. It is an apprenticeship readiness program that prepares people to go on different tracks in the 15 trades that are represented by the North American Building Trades. One of the barriers, it's a great opportunity, but one of the barriers for folks that are trying to go to work is transit, quite honestly. We have remote jobs now in the regional footprint in Gallatin, at GM, the new battery plants that they're putting in there, in Clarksville. And in order to be able to get those folks to work, I think it's very important for them to be able to access the economic opportunities of the region, that we figure out transit quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I'm excited to be a part of this table and look forward to our discussions.
All right, and I'll round us out. My name's Kendra Apkowitz. I work in Mayor O'Connell's office on climate sustainability and resilience issues. So obviously very much care about the environmental benefits that having an enhanced transportation system can bring to our community, but also love all of the other benefits that are going to come from this, ranging from workforce development to economic opportunity, as well as efficiency and everything and anything in between. My transit story that I'll share with you today is one where I had the great opportunity to go to graduate school in Chicago for 1 year, and I did not have a car there, but the train to and from South Side Chicago and Hyde Park to downtown, as well as from Hyde Park to the airport, were the only ways I had to get around the city. And it was one of the best ways for me to learn and experience the city. And I don't think I would have done anything other than sit inside my living space or go to classes had I not had those opportunities.
So I'll turn it over to Michael now.
All right, thank you all. And I know, I feel like a lot of common themes around empowerment, like independence, kind of give freedom, I was hearing. There's also traumatic stories that I think are also part of this. You know, we've talked about wrecks, harassment. So I think we oftentimes think about just transportation, getting in your car, but there's a lot of things that, you know, are embedded in just getting around town. So thank you all for sharing that. I was nervous coming into this. This is, I think, a really important topic, and I think you all sharing your stories like this just kind of helps us get settled with one another. I do quickly, because we've got some people on the perimeter, just want them to also just say hello and who they're with. We won't have them, no transportation story. We've heard some of y'all's, but which are important, and we will continue to talk about them, but in order to move on with time. So Maddie, really quickly. Yes, please. And Mateo.
Hi, Mateo Canavino.
All right. Yeah, again, thank you all. I think as we move along with the conversation, it's always going to be important that we center around some of the common things that we just talked about today. And I think it's a really good way for us to begin talking with others about the need to improve transportation within Nashville. So thank you for doing that. And I encourage you to do that with others as you are in the community. So I mentioned timeline. Also for people that may be watching this via video, the reason we wanted to do this was just to document this process. This did not happen previously, and I think there was a lot of questions as to where a program came from. And this is going to move quick, and it is a process that doesn't have a lot of time baked into it to kind of debate lots of iterations of projects. And so that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, but we've got a lot of work that's already been done that we can build from. And so there's also going to be continuing conversations about that, and we will talk about that more, kind of how we got there in just a second. You're probably going to hear me talk more than ever today, and then in future ones of these, it's going to be a lot more listening and engagement from you all. So we're trying to set the stage here so that we're all kind of working from some of the same information. So we've been doing work, looking at things like how many streets we're maintaining, the services that are offered, and we're going to continue to kind of present this information and talk about it differently as we go into the community. So this is some of the numbers that we're pulling together on it. And beginning to think about everything from like how people travel by air and bike and bus. So all of this is important as to how people get to Nashville and get around the region as well. Speaking of the region, we're not the only people growing. Everybody around us is growing. People want to come to Middle Tennessee. And this is the projected population. So looking at 2020 and comparing to our peers, this is looking at the metro area. By 2025, we're expected to have over 2 million people within the region. And so we don't see this growth trend stopping. And so this gives you, if you've been to some of these other cities, it may help resonate and kind of think about the development that you see there, the different transportation options that you see there as well. Then specifically looking at Davidson County, these are the projections from 2020 on. And if you've been in Nashville, some of you have been for a number of years, you've seen the changes. And if you look back to 1980, our population has almost doubled within Davidson County. This is the heart attack map that we talk about. It looks kind of like a heart that is suddenly getting more and more clogged related to traffic congestion. And so this is a slide that comes through the Greater Nashville Regional Council's regional transportation plan. So we just don't see, a release valve related to traffic. And so we've got to think of all of the transportation options and how people get around, not only within Nashville, but also throughout the region. Jobs are increasing. People want to be here. We heard stories of people coming in and, some friction. And there's a lot of things that are at play. And transportation is one piece of the puzzle. It's a very important piece of the puzzle, but there's a lot of things like job growth, housing, to be able to open small businesses and start businesses. This plan will not be able to solve all of it, but it will be one huge piece of the puzzle. Housing. We're probably hearing more and more about this than ever. I know the conversation shifted when we were working on Nashville Next, and we were talking in the community where it seemed to be Nashville was really affordable, and it switched within about a 3 to 5 year time frame. And so it's just not stopping. And so this is information that housing within the planning department has pulled together. And they have a great dashboard. The link is there. It's really long, but we can get it to you if you want to look at that later. A lot of past planning work has been done. So starting with Nashville Next, it was completed in 2015. It was a 3-year long process and staged really how the county would grow or established a vision for how the county would grow in the future. And it was really strongly tied to transportation and how people can get around. And it updated our 14 community plans. There was a broader transportation plan called Access Nashville 2040 that was done with that. The major and collector street plan was updated and has continued to be updated since then. The in-motion transit plan came out of that process, and that was a direct reflection of some of the criticism that was heard when the AMP BRT project was discussed on West End, that there wasn't a bigger plan. And in-motion helped establish that and tied to Nashville Next. And then we have plan to play. Our parks and greenways access is also an important component to this. And then we've updated the strategic sidewalk and bikeways plan a couple of times called Walk and Bike. So all of these things work together to shape how we grow within Nashville. So specifically focusing on the vision around the corridors and centers, Nashville Next outlined that. And so a lot of the community plans are shaped around that. And I think, and we'll show a couple of pictures here in a minute, you can see that happening on the corridors since Nashville Next was adopted. It's not to say that Nashville Next triggered that. It laid the foundation of where we should grow. And those are tend to be the areas that have the best infrastructure and the best setup to get connected through different transportation modes. So there's the guiding principles, and I think if you read through these out of Nashville Next, you'll see transportation and transit really linked to a number of these. You all mentioned some of them related to jobs and education and economic prosperity. So in summary, we've done at least 70 plans that we could identify. This is just since Nashville Next. Different departments have done these. And so there's a lot of discussion about transportation in many of these plans. So this is just the rundown then with community plans out of the planning department, the whole list. So you can spend hours looking at this. The transit plans we've done a lot with, and I've highlighted the really significant ones, so in motion, as I mentioned before. NDOT in their process, so updating Access Nashville, Vision Zero, with the walk and bike plan. And then there's been plans done in the region for a number of years looking at corridors and how the surrounding counties connect into Davidson County. TDOT has a lot of plans. It tends to be highway and interstate focused, but there's a lot of plans that are there that have really good ideas in them. And I think we alluded to over here some of the different evolution of mindset at TDOT, and then also some enabling legislation that helps address some of those needs statewide. And then there's a lot of other plans, and I'll just point out Imagine Nashville was just done, and it had about 10,000 survey respondents, and transportation and transit keep coming up in that conversation. And the ability to fit in Nashville and really belong here is really coming out of that process, and transportation is really critical to that. I'll just mention, we won't go through everything. So the Technical Advisory Committee reviewed some information that you all won't see. You all, for example, got some information on regional growth that we felt like the Technical Advisory Committee kind of knows that already. So we'll be compiling some of this and beginning to put it on the website. So we're trying to really tailor the discussion around different audiences that we're going to, but there'll be more information if you have questions on the website, and then always feel free to reach out to any staff and we can follow up. So I'll just use this picture on Dickerson Road. So this was around, it looks like 2017. And so the corridors have changed and are changing, and I think you all see that. This is now there on Dickerson Road, and what you don't see is there's improvements with a crosswalk and some sidewalks there that have been implemented. And so we were able to leverage that within the city to make some improvements, but that only helped for that one specific site. And so how do you begin to link these different developments over time along the corridors and improve the transportation options? West End similarly goes from fast food restaurants to mixed use development. So this is changing how people get around, how people walk across our streets within the city. So the theory within Nashville Next was, as development occurs, you can increase transit service along the key corridors. And so you're seeing some of this on the corridors play out since then. And I would argue that we're kind of in this area here now where we've got a box of development that is happening along the corridors where we can really serve it well with frequent local service. And WeGo has done a lot of that with the given means that they have today. And I think if you've ridden the bus previously and now you see that visibly, like buses are arriving quicker. But there's a lot of other infrastructure that has to be connected in order to support people while they are on the bus. So looking way back, I don't know if you realize that Nashville was actually the first city that had a priority dedicated bus lane. And like other cities came to Nashville and looked at that and implemented it. Somewhere along the line, we got really focused on cars. And so there was this disinvestment within the streetcars that were pulled out. If you hear Mayor Purcell talk, he will talk about how when he started in office, the whole fleet of the MTA system had to be completely upgraded. It was in such bad shape. So you see these attempts then, as we get into the 90s and early 2000s, to kind of diversify what we're doing and really get us going. And then there's a lot of plans. We've talked about this for a really long time. We're estimating well over 65,000 pieces of inputs, and that's just of the ones that are starred. This is not including any area or community plans. The important thing is that I know this is going to move quick. It's not a typical metro process. We like to really engage the community and have different versions out there and really obtain feedback and listen to people. This is a point where we're beginning to act on things. And so it leads up to a referendum then in November. The important thing to remember, though, is that the voters have a say in November. And then after that time, all of these projects will have community engagement within them on some level. So NDOT and WeGo do that fairly regularly. There's certain requirements with federal money that requires us to engage the community as well. And I assure you that knowing and being in Nashville will probably go above and beyond those requirements. So I know this makes people, I think, a little nervous at the pace that we're moving, but it is really a product of backtracking out from the November election, making sure things are ready for audit, and that we're prepared to act. There's a few challenges, and I won't go into some of these, but it impacts what we're able to do within Nashville, the inability to leverage impact fees. There's going to be a broader discussion on bus rapid transit along corridors that has to go through the General Assembly and the TDOT commissioner. Sidewalk requirements are being held up. And then affordable housing is also constrained. So just keep that in mind. So I think we're ready to implement is the point of this and kind of going through this. We don't want to have planning fatigue. Like I hear about that a lot. The 70 plus plans show that we've been engaged, but the engagement will continue. So this isn't the stopping of a conversation by moving a program forward. It's still continuing the conversation. All of the supporting plans pretty much reiterate improvements to transportation safety, investment in frequent transit along pikes and corridors, and connecting that infrastructure with basic sidewalks, bikeways, and smart technology. And so we're continuing to grow. That's why I went through the regional snapshot. And I think doing nothing is really not an option at this point. And so no action at this point has been able to sustainably fund our growing transportation needs. And so that's why we've brought you all together, because now we feel like is the time to act and bring a program forward. This is the timeline again, so backtracking from that. So just reiterating that this will move quickly. So now I will be quiet. I think we're going to hand it over to Kendra, and she may have a special request of you that I think has come in as well.
I do. So we're going to move around a little bit and give Michael a break from talking. But as mentioned by Mayor O'Connell as well as Michael, we're really interested in hearing from you. This is not our first time trying to move through a transit referendum, and so you will all see post-it notes in front of you and pens, and our ask is to identify at least one opportunity for improvement that we need to take into consideration as we embark upon developing this transportation improvement plan, as well as move through the referendum process. So it can be a reflection from your experience, perhaps being engaged in that effort as an advocate last time. It could be as a community member or an individual resident. So what are the mistakes maybe that we made last time that we want to make sure we're not making this time? And you'll see white post-it notes on the walls. We'll be placing those up there. Feel free to offer more than one. We're just asking for at least one. And Matea and Michael and I will walk around and collect those from you all as well. Maddie from our team also is going to come around and take some quick photos of you all. If that's not something you're comfortable with, just let her know. But we want to make sure that we're doing a good job of highlighting the representation that we do have on this really incredible body. So let's take 2 or 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll check back in. Yeah, we'll be sharing all of today's materials with you all afterwards. All right, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to keep us moving, but feel free to continue writing down your observations for improvement, and we will summarize these and send them back out to you. So wanted to spend a little bit of time making sure that everyone had a good understanding of our purpose as an advisory committee. It really is quite simple. It's just to advise Metro on what we need to be considering as we move through this process. As Michael mentioned before, we really are on a tight timeline, and so in these first few meetings, we'll be focused on hearing what you all really want to see within that transportation improvement plan, and then we'll be transitioning as we continue moving into more conversations about the engagement process. We recognize that everyone is going to bring different perspectives and experiences about transportation and community needs to the table, and so we want to make sure that, again, as we move from the planning process into communication and engagement, that we're doing that in a way that works for a diversity of perspectives. And so, again, as we move forward through that process, we'll be getting more input from you all. We really expect you to come here and share your feedback with us and attend consistently. So fairly simple. If you have any specific questions, please reach out to me, Michael, or Matea, and we'll let you know. If you do receive media requests, if it's about the planning process or Metro's process, please direct those to us. We do recognize, though, that as leaders in our community, you also might be asked your opinion, and that's okay to share. Just give us a heads up if you're approached with that. Michael?
Okay, are there any questions about what we've reviewed so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
A quick question. This is kind of real important. We might be taking it for granted. We're not really going to be talking about alternatives and about the content of the plan. Given the timeline that you just laid out, that's pretty much going to be a given. Our job is to talk about how we engage the community in discussing that proposal. It'll be easy.
You're going to do a little bit of both. You're going to have an opportunity here in a second to help shape the priorities. So knowing that we have a full list of needs, we want to hear from you as to what's important. And that is the part of the process that has to happen really quick because we have to hone in on the project. So we want to get your feedback on that right now. Then we will get into you all helping us advise the engagement approach going forward, because there's a significant component of this that is talking about what's in the program and making sure people know and are able to make a decision on this. And so we're going to need your help to kind of direct and help kind of give us feedback as to what you're hearing within the community. Yes, Leslie.
Refresh my memory. Is the referendum in November going to be permission to host a referendum, or is it going to be the actual referendum? There used to be a two-step process. I can't remember if we need the actual permission or if we've passed that now. Does that make sense?
No, yeah.
Okay.
No, it would be voting on a source to generate revenue to implement the program. It is a bit of a step process, so council does have to authorize putting it on the ballot. So, yep. Yes, the Improve Act. I'm sorry, change that. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry.
So I'm already getting some criticism from some community leaders that you want on your side on this. And so I think maybe some talking points or something to explain why the short timeline, because I think already it's like, well, they better engage Black and brown communities. I don't think this is the right year to do it. He's only in his first year. And so what are some things that we can say to folks to have constructive arguments in favor?
Okay, that's really good feedback, and I think that's something we can continue to work on. What I would like to do, just really quick, I keep going back to this, and I'm sorry I keep doing this, but when we first had the initial conversation around timeline, I don't think fully registered with some people the process that we have to go through and how quickly it has to happen. So looking at November 5th with the election, certain things have to be in place that are requirements of the Improve Act that we can't just sort of skip or ignore. So the local elected body has to authorize putting it on the ballot. So that's kind of the big thing within the summer. And then the state comptroller before that has to do an audit of the plan as well, and has to have a couple of months' time to do that. Then where we are right now is within determining the extent of the program. So then that kind of gets us back to today. So what will happen is by the end of this month, we hope to have a good idea of the program extent. There's financial modeling that has to be done on all of that. So that looks at the surcharge options that we have available, the revenues that traditionally come in with it, how it's forecasted. It's also factoring in contingencies, inflation that happens over 30 years. So this is a 30-year program. It also incorporates our ability to leverage federal grant dollars. And then revenue bonds. So there's a lot that has to go into this within the month of March based on the program that's there. I think there is some wiggle room on smaller items, but to say pulling one project out and another one, it begins to throw off all of your financial forecasting that then begins to delay it. Then it has to be turned over to the state comptroller by the end of March for their audit for 2 months. And then, sorry, really quickly, then it goes to Metro Council for 3 readings through the council process to then meet the election deadline.
So just one thing I'll share is that these are deadlines associated with the approval process. I think one thing that I want to be clear about as well is that engagement will happen throughout this. So we won't touch as much on this today, but and it'll be the entire focus of our next meeting. We have a public engagement strategy that we'll be sharing with you all that we're looking for your feedback on. So it talks about what interactions with council members will look like, what interactions with the general public will look like, and then what interactions with associations, CBOs, local businesses, what we anticipate all of that to look like. That plan right now is by no means perfect, and really that's why we'll be looking to you all to give us some feedback. But this will not be the only time, even throughout the approval process, that we're engaging with the public to get feedback.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I want to. The engagement never stops, and we always continue to listen and refine and adjust. But one thing to really convey is we don't have time to kind of change out projects. And that's not typically how we approach a process within Metro when it results in a plan. So I just want to establish expectation that, like, when we're going into the community, I don't want to set up that stuff will be able to be significantly changed in it. We want to hear concerns and issues about it, but just the way the process works, given the state enabling legislation, we can't change things out really once it gets into audit.
Michael, I think that one of the things that she was questioning as the community asked, like, why is this moving so fast? If you look at that last date, it says November the 5th election. That's a presidential election. And so the mayor's office and anyone else is sitting around this table who wants us to vote for this wants the highest turnout. So we want to make sure that when people are going to vote for whoever they vote for president and for congressional seats, that it's on your mind to make sure that you go to the end of the ballot and you vote for transit. So it's carpe diem. We're going to seize the day as quick as possible, and it has to be on at this election. Otherwise, we'll be waiting for another fast forward 4 years, and so you have to use the time that you have.
Yeah, correct.
And I think that point, I mean, yeah, I think that's what I was getting to, is I think that's going to be more of a compelling argument than all the things you said that I didn't understand around audit and finances. When talking to the community, I think it's just like the push for especially, who we know is on the ballot in November is going to be a big driving factor. And that's much more compelling than an audit or.
Okay, I hear you. I think it's more about like why now than, okay, gotcha.
But there-
Thank you for that.
You have a couple of great charts about the death by planning that we've been engaged with in 20 years. And what might be useful would be to complement that with a listing of the groups that were involved. You measured, we had 60,000 people that were engaged, but you had many organizations that were engaged, and it might be good to put a chart like this together that would show the organizations that have been involved over the now decades in doing the planning, because that would respond to the question of, are we listening to the communities? I mean, you're pretty confident that we've had that community input in the earlier plans, and I think you could do a better job of kind of showing that a little bit.
To be honest though, Michael, the reason why this plan failed the last time is because of what she just told you. You ran down from A to Z and you did not get straight to the point, because people don't have that much time and they need to know why are we doing this? Why people can't get to work, why there is the transit problem, but it's ultimately why. And so they just want you to run straight to the end. Keep it simple. That's honest.
I hear you. Thank you. Meredith's gonna, yeah. Yeah. So this is exactly, this is good, because this is why we want you at the table, and because we want it to help us refine how we're talking about this. So I realize we're getting like close to time, and if you will allow us to go over, I would appreciate that. Because we do want to get input on the projects, and this is kind of this narrow window where we have that opportunity right now. So what I'm going to show you, you're going to have lots of questions about, and I don't have all the answers. We don't have all of the financials figured out. We just know that when we look at the breadth of any program and what can be generated through the enabling legislation, so through the revenues that are being able to be brought in through surcharges, we can't do everything. So what we need your help on is figuring out what are the priorities, because we have a sense of what we've heard over the years, but we want to make sure we're in alignment on some things. And if we're not in alignment, I think that is something we need to continue to discuss and help shape the program itself. So really focusing on what are your priorities, and knowing that the terminology that I'm presenting will change, because not all of this has been completely workshopped. So you are in the middle of kind of the making of all of this, and a lot of times you see the final product, and so there's uncertainty here. It's not that we don't have our act together on things, but it's that we need input into this in order to shape the program. So the reason the Connect 4 game is around is we want you to begin thinking about 4 areas to focus infrastructure improvements with a investment program. All of what I'm going to talk about is draft and is not constrained financially. So it's above and beyond what can be generated. So we need your help kind of whittling this down. So when we talk about sidewalks, and I have to kind of walk through this, and starting with sidewalks, and you'll see some of the corridors emerge through this process. So thinking about a half mile around transit centers and stops and a quarter mile around local stops. Really getting a robust network of signals that builds on the traffic management center that is being implemented at NDOT currently. There's 2 other corridors that kind of emerge out of that you'll see here in a second. So Charlotte and Lebanon, looking at trying to get signals connected there. Then these are the priority corridors. So thinking about, sorry, Kendra, you want to say something?
Yes, apologies for interrupting you, Michael. We are for anyone who is viewing live, we're probably going to lose our live feed right at noon for a Metro Arts Commission meeting, but this will be recorded. So thanks for attending.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. So 4 bus rapid transit corridors with a focus on Murfreesboro to the airport, Gallatin, Nolensville, Dickerson. And the idea with those is that they would be dedicated lane, trying to achieve a similar service to light rail, but using buses. Priority corridors where it would be mixed in with traffic in some areas. Some areas have its own lane, but trying to give priority to buses in certain congested areas. A number of transit centers to help alleviate connections around the county and around the region, so you're not having to go downtown and back out. The frequent network, making bus service 24/7 on 14 routes. So it does not do that today. Adding new service on certain routes and some special event service, and then 12 routes as well, and increasing both the hours of operations on those routes. And then with safety, focusing on improvements at stop locations, lighting, some connections with greenways or cycling corridors, and some intersection improvements. So this list is really broad and big, and you don't have enough detail. So I know that. Are there questions, though, about that?
How long do we have?
How long do you have? Because I do, what I do worry about is just the terms that are used, and we're going to keep kind of working with that so that people can begin to envision what a BRT might be, or like a dedicated bus lane. We might even be working on some mock-ups or something over the summer. So.
I mean, I think part of I don't have any questions. To me, this is very clear, but that's just because I'm in a planning bubble. So this all makes sense to me, and I think it should all be done. But to me, and this is part of the messaging, this comes out of 70 plus plans that have been done with thousands of people and hours of input. Mm-hmm. That is what has to be led with, because people will think you're moving too fast, I have not been engaged, but yes, you have. Your neighbor has, your council person has, So like I said, to me, this all seems very clear to me, based off of all of the plans that you just showed. So I think that is the number one thing that people need to understand. We've talked about this ad nauseum for years. So that's the only comment I have on that.
Other thoughts, Leslie?
I have a thought just about language, and I put this on a sticky note. I think having youth representation, either on this committee or vetting this through the Mayor's Youth Council, but a lot of us at the table here are familiar with planning and transportation terms, and I think this is going to be lost on a lot of people. And so if you can vet some of this language through the youth and engage youth who are really strong in activism these days in a lot of arenas, that might be a really nice thing.
This is really helpful. What else? Yes, Dr. Millett.
My question is, how would we respond to a question? So if someone says, if you've done 70 plus plans, how is this one different from any of the other ones? How do we know that this one isn't going to be Plan 71 and then next year it's going to be something else? So what is different about what we're doing now?
Yeah, good question. So I would say this is a program instead of a plan. So it's a program to implement.
I think the other thing is the urgency. Again, as Michael noted on our slides, housing costs are increasing. We're seeing continued growth, and it just actually gets more and more expensive to try to implement these things the longer we wait. So urgency is the other thing we've spoken about as being a little bit different relative to other planning efforts.
So how quickly could these BRT lines go online? Is this something similar to just putting those concrete barriers and just there you are? Or how does that go?
So I think with the BRT, it's envisioned a number of these would have to be corridor reconstruction. So it's a significant construction project, so that takes time. Felix, do you want to add anything to kind of describe like length?
Yeah, I mean, there's, and it also depends on some of these is envisioned supplementing with federal money as well. So you can qualify for federal funding to be able to implement some of these. So there's some, that adds sometimes to the timeline in terms of going through that process and then with grants. But I think right now, I would argue some of these we just have a lot of that service already in place, or this frequent service. We just don't have the infrastructure, and that's probably the part that takes a little bit longer and design those takes a few years. But I think that the goal of the plan is also to start front loading the infrastructure and the capital investments in the first years of the plan. So if it moves aggressively, hopefully that can help expedite some of that.
Greg back there, I think, also had a comment.
Just can you, just for the group, can you say a little bit more about kind of how comprehensive a corridor reconstruction is? Like all of
Yes. Yeah. It includes, reconstructing a whole street corridor. So there's a lot of property impacts in terms of like driveway access points, things that have to be worked out with grade, utilities, and stormwater. So sidewalks that are being implemented as well. So like all of these kind of end up becoming, the bus is like a small portion of what has to be done on the street in order to make the rapid transit actually work. So getting the bus to move quickly and more frequently and reliably. There's a lot of like utility work and coordination that has to happen that really is not a bus thing. It's just you have to address those engineering concerns.
I was gonna say, if you guys have driven along Clarksville Highway, I think that's the best
Yes, that's
live
a really
example
good point.
we have right now of properties, driveway access, new signals, new lanes. So just imagine Clarksville Highway being redone, but with a bus lane in the middle.
Are we doing in the middle, or is it going to be one on either side?
I'm not. No.
That was my next question. That was my next question. So, like, is it in the middle, or is it, on either side? Would that?
I'm going to have Felix address that because I think that's still being determined. But
No, yeah, exactly. And like it was mentioned earlier, these projects will have to be designed. So what we're looking here is the macro. We have the design, we have this type of service and infrastructure. Once you get into the design of those projects, that's where we look at all those elements, whether it's going to be curbside or central running or things like that. But that hasn't been decided at all.
and I don't know that I answered it well. I feel like Courtney was going to add some things too.
Instead of getting bogged down in the will this be center running or side running, and those are important conversations to have. I think we need to think about BRT specifically in terms of what does that level of service look like? What does my experience look like using the BRT? And we're familiar with light rail, we're familiar with trains, but BRT really at its highest functioning level acts a lot like a train does. I used to say when I was working at WEGO that BRT is really a train on tires, right? It's running in its own right of way. It's running very frequently. You don't need a map. You don't need a schedule to be able to know that another bus is coming. And we really, I think, have to communicate to people that a BRT makes the bus sexy, right? It really does, for lack of a better forever to implement. It's far away in the future. There aren't other investments that can happen early on that can support BRT. You know, I think people don't find it quite as exciting as some other modes, but there's a lot that we can talk about in terms of a user experience that can improve people's commutes really, really well and easily and meaningfully.
A comment and then a question. The comment is, I live off of Clarksville Highway, and that project for 2 miles of widening Clarksville Highway from Bradley Parkway to Ashland City Highway has taken more than 3 years to complete, and I pray to God we do not subject the balance of our citizens to a project that looks and acts like that. That is, living in that and driving that every day, it's cluster is the best word, the best term I would use to describe that. So let's not do that if we can help it. My question is, it kind of goes back to the pace and the engagement and the 70 plans and all the work that's been done. For folks who, despite all of that work, feel like they have not been engaged, how do we, what's the repository for any portion of that data that we can point folks to and say, hey, here was the plan that was done for your area? Where do we direct them for that?
Yeah, so we're building out a website. I'm not 100% sure if it's live yet, but we will pass that along, and then there will be ways to provide feedback through that. And so we'll kind of be putting that repository there.
I do have a comment to what you were just saying. I live off of Clarksville Highway, also right behind the YMCA. And this goes to what I was thinking is part of the messaging is that these transit improvements is not for me today, but it is for my children who are 5 and 8. It's for me in the future. If I choose to live in Nashville, if I'm going to be a senior person living in Nashville, it's for me, 30 years from now. So change is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be, an annoyance for people. There is going to be construction, there is going to be change, and people, that's going to be a reality of growing and improving infrastructure in a city. So I think that's a very clear message that we just have to be real about. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's not for you today. This is for your children and people, that are going to be, it's for future you. Yeah. So anyway, so that's, I think, part of the message that people got lost in was like, this is going to take 30 years. Well, yeah, it is. And it's intended to take 30 years because it's not for you today. It's for us planning for the future. Yeah.
But I'd say it's both. There are important elements of this that aren't going to take 30 years. And I actually look at I don't know if your thought was you're going to use this as a communication and where you're looking for feedback, but you've got the bullets under service are, to me, upside down, because the ones at the bottom are the ones that are going to happen or can happen like next year. That we're going to see 24/7 service. We're going to see new service. Anyway, so as we did here, we got all focused on the BRT part of this, which is both sexy and really painful. And it's going to take a long time. And so anyway, I think a key part of the messaging in this plan is, this isn't a plan for 2060. This is a plan for 2026, when we'll see stuff really happening in the community.
To piggyback on those comments, I think of the Envision Casey process as being a really good process to reflect on, because MDHA, and I can't remember who is in the room from MDHA, had some reputation opportunities to overcome, just as transportation planning does in Nashville. And the Envision Casey process welcomed everyone. Didn't matter if you're a resident of Casey, if you were living next to Casey, if you lived across town, you were welcome at the table. The communication was clear, it was frequent, and there was an opportunity for input and immediate action. So I feel like the input translated into, you're gonna see something on the ground very soon, and when that came to fruition, it really, I think, invigorated everyone in that process. To me, having spent my entire career in government, we don't do public engagement very well. And I think that's a really, really shining star example of Nashville, how it was done well.
Thank you. These are all really good thoughts. I'm going to move us on because I do not want to miss an opportunity to get like really specific feedback from you all. So I'm going to try a Mentimeter. And so get your phones out if you have one. If you don't, let me know and we can kind of talk through your thoughts on this as well. So I know over here we might want to do that as well. Let me just switch out. So if you can on your phone, either go to this website or scan the code. And if anyone's watching the video afterwards, like this won't be active then to where you'll be able to, you know, adjust it and stuff. Oh no.
There's a public Wi-Fi that should be available.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
give you a splash page that you have to acknowledge the.
So we'll give you a second to get logged in and on the internet. See a few people are giving some thumbs up, so we've got some people getting in it. You're funny.
Yep, connected.
So are you all not able to get it up? Okay. Okay. So it looks like some people can't get it to work, but we will follow up with how to do that. But if you are able to get on, thank you all for being here. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't see any turn.
Okay, I'm gonna move on, but if we will follow up with a way to get input through this. So if you can put in, then what are your must-haves for this program? Okay, so I guess people were on, but maybe you didn't see it. Okay. Oh, okay. So as you put things in and enter it, it should pop up here.
TIP is the Transportation Improvement Program, the whole package.
It's what we're developing right now. These are good with thoughts on communication. Translation 24/7 is coming up in some comments. Some specifics related to Bell Road. Communication coming up again. So you can keep putting stuff in. If it's not going through, we'll figure out how to get this built out. So then with the improvement program, what would you prioritize? You're making existing service more frequent, improving walkability, deploying like signal technology, adding new transit modes, and creating extended routes. So it's kind of fun to watch it move. And again, the reason why we're asking you this is that we know we can't do everything.
Right.
And so we want to see if what we are pulling out of the plans are lining up with your feedback on it. And then if not, we will have hopefully a few weeks to adjust. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. So with the existing network, so thinking about transit service, just more frequent service, longer hours of operation, getting express service maybe with limited stops, and then connecting to regional surrounding counties, and then the WeGo Star. All right, thank you all. So longer hours connecting to surrounding counties and higher frequencies kind of coming out on top. Then when you consider expanding the network, does BRT, the mobility transit hubs, or expanding local bus service, building stops. We didn't talk about WeGo Link, but that's a service that utilizes rideshare to make a connection into neighborhoods to stops, and then building new park and rides. So it looks like this focus on maybe some of the transit centers and expanding bus service kind of coming out on top, the BRT. So like when I look at something like this is telling me like an emphasis on operations, kind of bubbling up in coverage. I think this is our last one. Is that right? Yes. So this is going to ask you, I think on a scale of 0 to 10, the relative importance of each of these. So that's typically development that would be in like a kind of a center along a corridor that would be built around taking the bus. Probably a closest example we would have today would be to look at the WeGo Star Station in Donaldson, and if development happened more intense in that area, it'd be oriented around that particular WeGo Star Station. So following up on Jama's comment about TOD, it's also taking it a step further, like thinking through, like, are there ways to incentivize that? So, like, would there be part of this program or through another program that you would devote incentives to encourage development in specific areas oriented around transit? Yes, and taking it a step further. Okay, this was good. So the thing that we'll do is, this is another input into working with WeGo and NDOT on the plan. So it's trying to help us gauge, are we going in the right direction or not? And then as we begin looking at the financial forecasts, what is potentially our trade-offs and things that we need to prioritize. So it's kind of what do we call it? Anticlimactic end to this, because we're in the middle of a process. I can't say, like, here we are, here's what we're going to do. But we're going to take this information back, and you all have given us really good information about talking and advice on how we talk about it within the community. The next meeting, we're going to focus on that a lot more, because I have like a list of terms that I know people don't understand, and you don't need me out there talking about it in that way. We need to make it relatable, and your perspectives are going to be important. And I heard really good perspective earlier today. So, any final questions?
I just want to make one final comment. Someone said it, and a lot of wisdom was shared in this room today, but the comment that I think sticks out to me the most is making sure that when we're talking about this, we don't focus on the BRT and the fancy transit language. We focus on what is the user experience, like what is the experience as a resident? Because my understanding from, and rather than talking about plans, we talk about how many people have been touched, and that there is so much diversity and demographic touches and leaning into low-income and communities of color that informed these plans. I don't want to talk about plans. I want to talk about the people who informed the plans. And so I really want to make sure that we're focused on the outcomes and the people as much as possible. And while we are talking about what goes in this plan, there's tremendous consensus that these are the priorities. I mean, when we've looked at, if you go through all of those plans, there's tremendous consensus. So I just don't want to create a myth that isn't currently out there, that this is a quick and dirty planning process, because it isn't, right? And so as much as we can lift that up, it feels very meaningful and important to me, because I'm just so concerned about, like we owe it to the people of Nashville to have this be done. There's so much urgency here, and and we have left so much federal money on the table, and so much time, so many people's lives, and the future. Another message that I think we really need to lift up is, when you show those growth numbers, and we know what's happening in Nashville, can you imagine what it's going to look like if nothing changes? I mean, your commute alone, or, you know, what's happening in Clark, that's gonna be happening anyways. And so, you know, we have to get this done. And so I just wanted to leave us on that note.
No, thank you for that. Please reach out to us. We will follow up with information from this and then continue to get input. The 29th. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the 29th is for sure. The technical committee is meeting next week. They'll do a similar thing. And then I think we're going to have kind of a few data points to begin comparing things on to inform it. All right. Thank you all.